If there's one group Donald Trump should have never messed with, it's women. But he did, and now he is paying the ultimate price. Trump is now freaking out as his attacks on women are backfiring, and now it appears that they could be the death knell of the Trump campaign. We are receiving voter data right now showing women voting in record numbers, far outpacing men at the polls, and Trump is now trying to say they shouldn't care that he stripped them of their reproductive freedom. Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work out for you, Donald. My name is Brett Meiselas here with the MeidasTouch Network. Remember to hit subscribe and help us get to 3.5 million subscribers. Here's an update for you. This is as of Friday. 9.5 million early votes cast so far in the 7 swing states. 952,866 more women have voted than men, or 55.1% to 44.9%. The gender gap grew by 87,396 from Thursday. Gender turnout gap is plus 14 points in Michigan, plus 13 in Pennsylvania, plus 12 in Georgia, plus 10 in Wisconsin, plus 9 in North Carolina, plus 4 in Arizona, and it's falling a little short in Nevada, but overall, very good for Vice President Kamala Harris. And over the weekend, we've been seeing a similar pace of women far outpacing men at the polls. As political strategist Stuart Stevens says in response to that information, polls have sample sizes of hundreds or a couple of thousand. Early voting has sample sizes of millions. It's not theoretical or speculative. All polling is based on modeling from past elections. There has never been a gender gap like this in turnout. If Harris wins by a surprising number, this will be why pollsters didn't see it coming. Matthew Dowd, another political strategist, writes, "The national polls showing this race even are making assumptions that men, whites, older voters, and Republicans will have a larger share of the vote this year than in 2020. The polls with Harris up 3 or so have it more balanced to what 2020 was. Harris is up 3 or so." MSNBC's Jesse Rodriguez writes, "Harris's closing message seems to be breaking through. Trump trails her by 12 points on who is more honest and trustworthy in a new CNN poll, and by 6 points on who cares about people like you and who will put the country's interest above their own." And here's some other incredible polling we are seeing in recent days. This from Harvard, presidential polling among likely 18 to 29-year-olds. Harris at 60%, Trump at just 32%. And then there's this stunning poll out of New Hampshire. I'm going to preface this by saying this is an outlier, but these are incredible numbers for Vice President Harris. This is from Dartmouth. Vice President Harris in New Hampshire at 59% to Trump's 38%, plus 21 for Vice President Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, we're getting more information about who is voting on each side during the early voting period. And here's what we're finding. This is from New York Magazine. They say the returned Republican ballots in Pennsylvania largely come from voters who had cast a ballot in 2020, a sign that their early vote is not bringing any new voters to the polls so much as it is cannibalizing the election day vote. This would be an especially good sign for Democrats since the Trump theory of victory relies on first-time and low-propensity voters coming to the polls, according to Tom Bonnier, the CEO of TargetSmart, a Democratic data firm. Quote, "If I'm Trump, I'm a little more worried than the Harris campaign because the Trump campaign needed to change the makeup of the electorate to find an advantage that was not there 4 years ago," he said. "They need to turn out young people and people who don't regularly vote, and there is no evidence of that materializing." We are seeing this stunning information right now, which shows that the energy is on Vice President Kamala Harris' side. Tom Bonnier also adds this. He says, "Sort of amazing that, despite GOP efforts to shift their voters to early voting and Democrats moving back to election day voting post-pandemic, the gender gap in Michigan is now bigger than it was at this point in 2020 or 2022. More bad news for Donald Trump. And Trump knows that he is on the wrong side of the abortion issue and that he has screwed this up. So he's trying to act like this is not even a big deal at all, that reproductive freedom, who cares about it? This is what Donald Trump wrote on his social media website yesterday. Quote, "Abortion has dropped way down as an issue. States are already giving it to the people to vote, which is what everyone wanted. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Many states are already done. Others are moving to a vote now. A 52-year contentious issue will finally be coming to a close. The focus is now on the broken border, inflation, and the economy. Well, just because you say that, Donald, does not make it true. This is one of the biggest issues of this election, and it's an issue that impacts all Americans. And Kamala Harris is focusing on this quite extensively in her campaign, including at her rally in Houston, where this was the main theme. Vice President Kamala Harris responded to Donald Trump's post, writing the following: "Women are suffering and dying because of Trump's abortion bans. Americans will show Donald Trump at the ballot box exactly how much we care about reproductive freedom." And as we look at Donald Trump's closing message, it is just so incredibly bizarre. From that post to what he's saying at his rallies, it just leaves you scratching your head as to what the heck is going on. Donald Trump at all of his rallies now, including yesterday in Michigan, his closing message is to say that America's horrible and that it is a garbage can.
But I use this term, I always said we're the dumping ground for the world. Yesterday I said we're the garbage can for the world. We're a garbage can. We're like a garbage can, and they dump.
Meanwhile, on Saturday, Vice President Harris was with Michelle Obama in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or as they were calling it, Kamalazoo. It was Michelle Obama's first stop on the campaign trail, and they were highlighting the issue of reproductive freedom. Let me just show you the crowd at this event.
The stage, your former First Lady,
Now let's compare that to Donald Trump's event yesterday in Pennsylvania, where the crowd emptied out of their already half-empty seats while Trump was speaking. Watch this.
I want to go to the Alien Amnesty Act of 1798. We have to go back.
And in these final speeches, Trump spends so much of them just being incredibly jealous of the enthusiasm and the momentum of Vice President Harris's campaign. And it is crushing him that Beyonce and all of these celebrities are coming out to support her. So Donald Trump just keeps lying about it. Donald Trump said at the Houston, Texas event, which you all saw, that everybody left once Beyonce left and that everyone was so disappointed by Beyonce and that the whole thing was a disaster. Watch this.
Last night my opponent had one of these, and they bust in people, but they got Beyonce, and Beyonce, Beyonce, blah. They got Beyonce. So Beyonce went up, spoke for a couple of minutes, and then left, and the place went crazy. They booed the hell out of everybody. They thought she was going to perform. Now, I would have no interest in that, but they said, and what happened is my opponent got up and started speaking. They booed the hell out of her. It's crazy.
He's so jealous. By the way, just his lying alone, if you take away everything else, that should be disqualifying. But let me jog his memory right here. How about that? Let's play the clip of the 30,000 people at the Harris rally in Houston. Watch. In Kalamazoo, instead of being focused on crowd size like Donald Trump, Vice President Kamala Harris was focused on the issues, and at the rally, she responded to Donald Trump's claim that everybody wanted Roe v. Wade overturned. Watch this.
The suffering. And Donald Trump still refuses to even acknowledge the pain and suffering he has caused. He insists that, and I'm going to quote, everybody wanted Roe v. Wade to be overturned? Come on, everybody wanted this? Women are being denied care during miscarriages? Some only being treated once they developed sepsis? They didn't want this. Couples just trying to grow their family who have been cut off from IVF treatments? They didn't want this. The men of America seeing their daughters, wives, sisters, and mothers put at risk because their rights have been stripped away? The men of America don't want this. Women have died because of these bans. How could anybody say that they wanted this? And you have heard me say, I do believe Donald Trump to be an unserious man. But this consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Brutally serious. And what I mentioned are just some of the consequences of what he has done. And I will tell you, I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly.
And former First Lady Michelle Obama's speech yesterday was so incredibly powerful. If you can, watch the full thing. But I want to show you this clip where she made a powerful case for why men should be caring about reproductive freedom. Check this out.
So to the men who love us, let me just try to paint a picture of what it will feel like if America, the wealthiest nation on earth, keeps revoking basic care from its women, and how it will affect every single woman in your life. Your girlfriend could be the one in legal jeopardy if she needs a pill from out of state or overseas, or if she has to travel across state lines because the local clinic closed up. Your wife or mother could be the ones at higher risk of dying from undiagnosed cervical cancer because they have no access to regular gynecological care. Your daughter could be the one too terrified to call the doctor if she's bleeding during an unexpected pregnancy. Your niece could be the one miscarrying in her bathtub after the hospital turned her away. And this will not just affect women, it will affect you and your sons. The devastating consequences of teen pregnancy won't just be borne by young girls, but also by the young men who are the fathers. They too will have their dreams of going to college, their entire futures totally upended by an unwanted pregnancy. If you and your partner are expecting a child, you will be right by her side at the checkups, terrified if her blood pressure is too high, or if there's an issue with the placenta, or if the ultrasound shows that the embryo was implanted in the wrong place, and the doctors aren't sure that they can intervene to keep the woman you love safe. If your wife is shivering and bleeding on the operating room table during a routine delivery gone bad, her pressure dropping as she loses more and more blood, or some unforeseen infection spreads and her doctors aren't sure if they can act, you will be the one praying that it's not too late. You will be the one pleading for somebody, anybody, to do something. And then there is the tragic but very real possibility that in the worst case scenario, you just might be the one holding flowers at the funeral. You might be the one left to raise your children alone. See, these are just some of the ways women die during childbirth. And I don't want to be a downer, y'all. But in many cases, there is no warning, and things go bad very quickly. And when it happens, every second of hesitation or delay can lead to devastating outcomes. So I am asking y'all from the core of my being to take our lives seriously. Please, do not put our lives in the hands of politicians, mostly men, who have no clue or do not care about what we as women are going through.
Michelle Obama also spoke about why it's so important that we get this election right. Watch.
But to anyone out there thinking about sitting out this election or voting for Donald Trump or a third-party candidate in protest because you're fed up, let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. So, are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety?
And one of the other stories we see developing right now is that there are a lot of kind of normal mainstream Republicans and conservatives out there who will not vote for Donald Trump and who are voting for Vice President Kamala Harris here. Because with the things Donald Trump is saying, like when he calls America a trash can, when he just lies all the time, his attacks on women, you have these voters going out there and saying, that's not the America that I grew up with. This is not what I stand for as a conservative, as an American, as somebody who loves freedom. Listen to what this Pennsylvania Republican has to say.
Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
I'm the co-chair of Republicans for Harris in Pennsylvania. And it seems like we're all doing kind of a similar task. And, you know, one thing that we talk about to our Republican and independent audiences is how Donald Trump talks about this country. And it is exactly the opposite of the kind of message that brought me to the Republican Party in the first place. And that was Ronald Reagan. This is a shining city on the hill.
Yep.
He just the other day called America a garbage can.
That's insane to me.
The voter enthusiasm across the country right now is just through the roof. And this weekend was the first time that people in Michigan were able to actually early vote in person. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson wrote the following: all across Michigan, citizens are showing up in record numbers to vote early. Before today, this was posted on Saturday, the record for early voting in a single day was 11,000 voters. Are you ready for this? It's barely noon and already 70,000 have voted. Let's go vote. And within a few hours after this, Michigan already surpassed over 100,000 voters in the first day of early voting, and it's way beyond that right now. So absolutely incredible turnout. Here are some other photos from the lines at the polling places. Here's the line to vote in one of the 6 early voting sites in the city of Ann Arbor, big college town, went 87% for Joe Biden. You could see that right there. Here's the line to vote in Farmington Hills, Michigan. This is one of the bluer Detroit metro suburbs, a very diverse area. This went 65% Biden. You could see a lot of people lined up right there. Here's a line in Bloomfield Hills. This is home of the Romney Biden voters, who would be like Nikki Haley people. In 2012, Romney won this area by 34. In 2020, Biden won this area by 1. And you could see this massive line of people to vote right here. And speaking of Nikki Haley voters, let me show you this clip of a former Haley voter on how she decided to vote for Vice President Harris. Watch this.
Attorney Joan London switched her registration to independent after voting for Haley in the Republican primary. London was asked to join this local political program not long after our first visit 5 months ago. Back then, she told us she would write in a conservative because she viewed President Biden as too old. Later, she said she viewed Vice President Harris as too liberal and untested. But then, she watched the Harris-Trump debate.
The last straw was what he said about the Ukraine, where he said that we have to have a negotiated settlement. For someone who claims to be a conservative to say that was, in my opinion, outrageous. It's appeasement.
So London is now voting Harris, voting Democrat for president for the first time, because she believes Trump must lose, because she gets the battleground state math.
I needed to vote against allowing him to become president again. I don't want it on my conscience that I contributed in some way to that. Sometimes you have to say, American first, conservative second, Republican third.
And by the way, in Georgia, we're seeing similar patterns. As of yesterday at 3:15 p.m., Fulton County, Georgia had exceeded 40% turnout among all active registered voters. For comparison, it was at 29.8% on Wednesday morning. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's appearance on the Joe Rogan show is getting universally panned. People are saying that it was absolutely horrible. And if you remember, this was the interview that caused him to be more than 3 hours late to his event in Michigan on Friday night. And he had hundreds of people leaving. People were passing out from being too cold. It was a complete and utter mess. Here's the headline from Arizona Central. They say, opinion: Donald Trump's Joe Rogan interview was a brain-rotted waste of 3 hours. Ouch. Let me just show you this low-light reel of Trump's appearance on the Joe Rogan show.
I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost, Joe, they say I lost by 22,000 votes. We could go into this stuff. We could go into the ballots, or we could go into the overall. I'll give you another one.
Are you going to present this ever?
Like, do you think like?
Let me just give you one more before. That's your kind of
your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're getting wide with this weave.
But isn't it
I want to
much
bring
better?
it back to tariffs.
But wait one second before we finish with tariffs.
What could you do now?
I cannot. I do not want to tell you. For the purpose of looking smart to 5 people that that say, "Oh, he was great." You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales freaking crazy.
And this Trump-Vance ticket is just completely disgraceful in all ways. It's really just the worst of America. And I want to show you this example. So this was going around Reddit. Somebody posted the following. Went to vote early today. There's a no political merch sign. A woman comes to vote wearing Trump gear. They tell her she can't. She calls one poll worker a D-head and rips her shirt off. She told another poll worker to suck her C, and this is why she votes for Trump. Now, this was going around. Everybody was speaking about how kind of psychotic this woman was, how unhinged this woman was. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, the person who would be a heartbeat away from the presidency, reposted this and wrote, "What a patriot," encouraging these attacks on our poll workers, encouraging this psychotic behavior. This right here is a disgrace. This is why we need to leave these people in the dustbin of history. Enough is enough. This is not what America is about. Shame on J.D. Vance. What an absolute disgrace. And you know who kind of summed this up best this weekend? President Joe Biden. Joe Biden was speaking to reporters on Saturday, and he said that Trump has no class at all. Watch this.
Look, Trump has no class at all. Zero, none. Think, all kidding aside, if this wasn't a political campaign, how would you characterize a man in terms of his manners, his decency? I mean, beneath the president.
Biden was also on the campaign trail on Saturday speaking to union workers, and he said that Donald Trump is a loser in every way imaginable. Watch.
Donald Trump is a loser. He's a loser as a candidate, and more importantly, in my view, and I'm just going to say it straight up, he's a loser as a man. He's a loser as a man.
And here are some final thoughts I want to leave you with from Stuart Stevens, political strategist, who's feeling optimistic about the race. Here's what he has to say. Race is remarkably stable. 47% of the country is MAGA or open to MAGA. 53% is not. The goal of Harris-Walz is to coalesce as much of the 53% as possible. Today, Liz Cheney and Bernie Sanders are on the same side. That's not a bad coalition. The differences in polls are about getting the percentage of the 53% that Harris is getting. Trump always stays stuck at 47%. If you were for Trump, you were for Trump months ago. You were looking for someone else to be acceptable. He's functioning as the incumbent. Harris is winning a larger percentage of Republicans than Trump is of Democrats. She's also winning independents. Could Trump win? Sure. But is there any element of the campaign that Trump campaign is performing at a higher level than the Harris campaign? Think of it as a sports matchup. She has better organization, more money, a better message, and is performing at a much higher level than Trump. Most candidates are trying not to make mistakes at this stage of the presidential race. Exhaustion is a key factor, but Harris is improving. Maybe because she hasn't been a candidate for a year and a half. In campaigns, the question you ask every night is, would you rather be your campaign or the other guy? I would rather be Harris. And finally, before I go, let me show you this brilliant new ad from the Harris campaign. Check this out.
Welcome to Mar-a-Lago Senior Living, a state-of-the-art senior facility located on the coast of Florida. If the senior in your life is getting exhausted, it might be time for a change. Here at Mar-a-Lago Senior Living, we care for even the most particular residents.
My teleprompter people doing a great job. As are Asians.
Even the ones who still feel young at heart.
And I'm not 80, and I'm not that close to 80. Put on Pavarotti singing Ave Maria.
Many residents find their favorite music comforting. If the senior in your life tends to wander off, our round-the-clock care has you covered. Mar-a-Lago Senior Living. Watch the Florida sunset while you sundown.
So folks, the momentum is on the side of Team Democracy, so you know what to do. Vote, vote, vote. Make sure that your friends and family vote. Also, please share your stories about voting in the comments with us. We love to read them. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Remember to hit subscribe. Help us get to 3.5 million subscribers. The more people who subscribe, the more people we reach, and that is so incredibly important, especially during this crucial time. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.